My fiancé said, "I'm keeping my dating apps active until the wedding. I need a backup plan." I said, "That's honest at least." Then I matched with her on Tinder using a fake profile, screen recorded our conversation, and showed it to her family at the rehearsal dinner. When her dad stood up and asked her to explain, I, 29 male, am an average guy who works a standard corporate job, but I managed to save up for 6 years to buy a house just before my wedding. My ex-fiancé, 27 female, and I had been together for 4 years and engaged for 14 months. The wedding was exactly 3 weeks away, and the stress was getting intense. Mostly because her demands kept multiplying, but I brushed it off as normal pre-wedding jitters. I was sitting at the kitchen island of my new house, sorting through a stack of vendor contracts. She was lounging on the couch across the room, mindlessly scrolling through her phone. I needed her to review the final catering headcount, so I walked over and sat next to her. As I leaned in, a notification dropped down from the top of her screen. It was the unmistakable flame icon of Tinder. A message preview flashed briefly about grabbing drinks. I stopped dead. I stared at her screen, then up at her face. She saw the notification, swiped it away with a completely steady hand, and went back to scrolling Instagram. Zero panic. Zero guilt. I kept my voice completely level and asked if that was Tinder. She didn't even look up and just casually said, "Yeah, it was just a notification." Asked her why she had Tinder active on her phone 3 weeks before our wedding. She finally locked eyes with me, looking slightly annoyed that I was interrupting her scrolling. She told me she was keeping her dating apps active until the wedding because she needed a backup plan. She actually said, "Just in case this doesn't work out. It's smart to keep your options open until the paperwork is signed." She said it with the casual indifference of someone explaining why they keep a spare tire in their trunk. My mind raced through a dozen different reactions like screaming, tearing up the contracts, or demanding she pack her bags right then. But a strange, cold clarity washed over me. If I blew up right then, she would just gaslight me. She would cry, tell her family I was being abusive and insecure, and somehow make herself the victim. I needed to see exactly what her backup plan entailed. I just told her, "That's honest at least," and walked back to the kitchen island. She called out that it was nothing personal, just logistics, completely oblivious that she had just detonated our entire relationship. That night, after she went to sleep, I took my laptop into the guest bedroom. If she was window shopping for a replacement while I was paying for a $30,000 wedding, I was going to find out exactly what she was looking for. I created a fake Tinder profile. I didn't use pictures of male models because that would be too obvious. I found a public social media profile of a guy who lived on the opposite side of the country. He looked like a standard, successful professional with a nice watch, tailored suits, and a couple of photos on a boat. I set the name to something generic, listed his age as 32, and set his profession as a commercial real estate developer. I paid for the premium version of the app, so I could place the profile's location exactly a mile from her office building downtown. I set my preferences to her exact age and distance and started swiping. It took me 3 days of careful monitoring before her face popped up on my screen. Her profile was fully updated. Her bio literally read that she wasn't officially off the market yet and was looking for someone who knows how to treat a woman right and understands the value of ambition. I swiped right. The screen instantly exploded with the match animation. She had already swiped right on the fake profile. I started a screen recording on my phone and sent the first message, saying she looked like trouble and asking what "not officially off the market" meant. She replied almost immediately, saying she was engaged but not blind, and that her current situation was safe but getting boring. She said she liked a man who takes charge. I sat in the dark, watching the screen recording capture every single keystroke. Over the next week and a half, I maintained the conversation with her using the fake profile. I kept my responses confident, slightly arrogant, and focused on wealth and property, playing heavily into the real estate developer persona. She took the bait so hard. I asked her why she was on an app if she was getting married so soon, hinting at cold feet. Her response made my blood run cold. She typed out that she was just securing her financial future. She explained that I had just bought a house, and once we were married, half of that equity would be hers. She explicitly said she didn't see us lasting more than a year or two, and that she was just playing the long game. The screen recording captured it all. The absolute entitlement and premeditated financial manipulation. She wasn't just keeping a backup plan, she was actively planning a divorce before she even walked down the aisle. I used the fake profile to egg her on, telling her it was smart to get on the deed, and asking if I had added her yet. She complained that I was dragging my feet. She said she was telling me her mother thought it was a sign of disrespect that she wasn't on the title before the wedding. She actually typed out that she was pushing me to sign a quitclaim deed that week, and if I didn't, she might threaten to call off the wedding because I always cave. I stopped typing, saved the screen recording, and backed it up to 3 different cloud drives. The next morning, the real-world escalation began exactly as she planned. She came into the kitchen, slammed her coffee mug on the counter, and crossed her arms. She told me she and her mother decided I needed to add her to the house deed by Friday as a formality to prove I was fully committed. I kept my voice neutral and reminded her the house was in my name and bought with my money. She threw a massive fit, her voice rising to a shrill pitch, accusing me of financial abuse and trying to control her by keeping assets hidden. The audacity was staggering. In our state, if I signed a quitclaim deed adding her to the title before we were married, she would immediately become a half-owner. Even if the wedding never happened, I would have to take her to civil court to force a partition sale. I lied smoothly and said I would talk to my lawyer about drafting the paperwork, but it might take a little time. She rolled her eyes and told me to just get it done. Then she casually mentioned her mother decided we needed the platinum floral package for an extra $4,000 and expected me to pay the balance that day. I refused. She threw a dish towel at the wall, screamed that I was ruining her dream wedding, and stormed out of the house. 10 minutes later, my fake Tinder profile got a message. She complained to the fake me that her fiancé was being completely impossible and cheap, and she wished she was getting drinks with him instead of dealing with my peasant behavior. I replied, telling her to dump me and come see me. She said she was tempted, but needed the house first. She suggested meeting up late the night before the wedding, right after her rehearsal dinner, because she would need a distraction. I recorded that too. I spent the next 2 weeks quietly severing my financial liabilities. The wedding venue was booked under her father's name and credit card, which was standard for her family's tradition. I had only paid for the catering and the photographer. I contacted both vendors, explained the situation confidentially, and canceled the contracts. I lost half my deposits, but it was a cheap price for my freedom. I let her father's venue contract remain completely intact. Fast forward to the rehearsal dinner, the night before the wedding. It was held in a private dining room at a high-end downtown restaurant with about 40 people in attendance, including her entire extended family, my family, and the bridal party. Her father had spared no expense. He stood at the head of the long table projecting the image of a proud patriarch. My ex-fiancée was sitting next to me in a white designer dress she had demanded I buy, acting the part of the radiant, deeply in love bride. She kept resting her hand on my arm and smiling brightly for the photographer her mother had hired. She even leaned in and whispered asking if I was nervous because I was so quiet. I just told her I was taking it all in. After the main course, the speeches began. Her father gave a long, self-indulgent speech about his daughter's virtues, her high moral character, and how lucky I was. Her mother followed, crying delicate tears about the beautiful, honest foundation of our relationship. Then it was my turn. I stood up and walked over to the corner of the room where I had previously asked the restaurant staff to set up a digital projector and a pull-down screen. I had told everyone I put together a surprise slideshow of our memories. I thanked her parents for their beautiful words about honesty and character. I told the room that as we prepared for tomorrow, I wanted to share something that perfectly encapsulated her dedication to our future and how she truly views our relationship. She beamed, looking around the room, clearly expecting a romantic montage. I pressed a button on the remote, and the projector flared to life. The screen did not show a photo. It showed a massive, high-definition screen recording of an iPhone displaying a Tinder chat log. The room went dead silent. The only sound was the hum of the projector fan. I didn't let them process it in silence. I started reading the messages aloud, my voice echoing off the wood-paneled walls so even the elderly relatives at the back could hear. I read out her messages about being engaged but not blind, and how her current situation was safe but boring. I heard a sharp intake of breath from my sister. My ex-fiancée's face drained of all color. She froze, her mouth slightly open. I advanced the video to the most damning segment and read aloud her plans to secure her financial future, take half my equity, and how she didn't see us lasting more than a year. She suddenly shrieked and leaped out of her chair, lunging toward the projector and almost tripping over her heels. I stepped in front of the lens, blocking her, and raised my volume over her shouting. I read the part where she said she was pushing me to sign the deed and that I always cave. Pandemonium erupted. My brother stood up, his chair scraping violently. Her mother gasped and clutched her chest. Her father slammed his hands down on the table, stood up with his face purple with rage, and pointed a shaking finger at his daughter, demanding she explain what the heck this was. She was hyperventilating, backing away, screaming that it was fake, that I hacked her phone, that it was AI generated to humiliate her. I looked directly at her father and told him it wasn't fake. I told him to ask her to open her phone right then because the app was still installed and the messages were still there. I told him I knew this because I was the one she had been messaging. Her father stepped toward her and demanded her phone. She clutched her purse to her chest, screaming that I violated her privacy, effectively confirming everything. She looked wildly around the room, begging her mother to tell everyone it was just pre-wedding jitters and venting. My brother shot back from across the room that venting online doesn't involve planning to steal a man's house and divorce him in a year. I turned to the room at large and announced the wedding was canceled. I explained that I had already canceled the caterer and the photographer weeks ago. I looked at her father and suggested he call the venue that night to see what he could salvage because his contract was in his name and I wouldn't be paying a single cent toward it. Her father looked like he was going to faint. The venue was a $40,000 minimum spend, fully non-refundable at this late date. She started crying for real, screaming that I couldn't do this, that I owed her, and that we had a life together. I told her we had nothing, and I wanted the ring back. She physically recoiled, covering her left hand, claiming it was a completed gift and I couldn't take it back. I kept my voice totally calm and explained that under our state's laws, an engagement ring is a conditional gift given in contemplation of marriage. Since the marriage wasn't happening, the law required the ring to be returned. I told her if she didn't hand it over right then, my lawyer would serve her with a replevin lawsuit on Monday morning, and I would make sure she paid my legal fees. Her mother tried to intervene, crying that I was ruining her life over a silly mistake. I just replied that her mistake was thinking I was stupid. I knew she wouldn't hand it over willingly, so I just walked out of the private dining room, leaving her family to deal with the absolute wreckage of their entitlement. The fallout was spectacular. The next day, she refused to return the ring and tried to control the narrative on social media. She posted a long, tearful status claiming I abandoned her at the altar due to a sudden mental breakdown and paranoia. I didn't even argue. I just uploaded the screen recording to all my social media platforms, tagging her, her family, and half of our mutual friends without any commentary. The video spoke for itself. Within an hour, she deleted her post. Within 2 hours, she deleted all her accounts. On Monday morning, my lawyer sent a formal demand letter via certified mail citing the specific state statute regarding conditional gifts, threatening a civil suit for replevin and conversion if the $15,000 ring wasn't returned in 48 hours. Her father, realizing the public humiliation and the massive legal and venue costs they were already facing, forced her to hand it over. He drove to my lawyer's office and dropped it off himself, refusing to make eye contact. Her family was left on the hook for the massive venue bill. She lost the ring, she lost the house she was plotting to steal, and she lost every ounce of respect from anyone who knew us. I heard through mutual friends that she had to move back into her parents' basement because she couldn't afford rent in the city on her own. I sold the house 3 months later to wipe my hands clean of the memories, made a decent profit, bought a smaller place with a bigger yard, and adopted a dog. Looking back, that Tinder notification was the best thing that ever happened to me. If you want to hear more stories about dodging absolute disasters and making sure the trash takes itself out, hit that subscribe button before your partner asks you to sign a quitclaim deed.